Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome home, Mr. Secretary.
Senator Reid, nice to meet you. I don't believe we've ever met.
Well, today's the beginning of a beautiful relationship. Didn't Humphrey Bogart say that?
We can quote Ray Dalio, big, beautiful.
Mr. Secretary, Treasury distributes about $5.4 trillion a year in payments, Social Security benefits, tax refunds, military salaries, and all these payment systems contain some of the most personal information of every American. And you have had in Treasury DOGE representatives who are reputed to have access to lots of information. And I've been asking questions, not just of you, but of other cabinet members about the extent of the information they have. Have your staff or any DOGE representatives, in terms of the distribution of payments, started to stop or block any payments?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, it turns out that in emails filed by the Treasury Department to court, your chief of staff emailed that, quote, Mr. Krause and his team needed access to the federal payment system so they could pause USAID payments and comply with Mr. Trump's January 20th executive order to halt foreign aid. Did that take place?
I believe that may have been before I arrived on January 28th. And I also believe, if that's the Washington Post story or the New York Times story, they were actually quite selective with the email that was leaked to them. And Senator, just to be clear, what I discovered on my arrival was that we process about 1.5 billion payments a year that sums to the total you mentioned. Approximately 1/3 of that do not have what is known as a TAS, Treasury Accounting Symbol, or we found that. Having a TAS is the only way to tie a payment back to an appropriation. So we have been working very hard to make sure that all 1.5 billion payments can be tied back to an appropriation. I think a good mental model for this is to think of what's called the Treasury General Account, the TGA, is the checking account for the U.S. government. And above that sits between 400 and 450 entities, whether it's the big departments, the agencies, the smaller entities, and they put in requests for payments. Treasury is just the paymaster. So in general, we do not try to stop payments if they are properly notified, authorized.
Well, you're right. The occurrence of this stoppage was January 24th, 4 days. But in fact, payment was stopped because of a political motivation. USAID was deemed to be an inappropriate agency in the government, and which begs the question, how could you stop someone, or could you stop someone that decided to stop payments to an individual organization for reasons that were not meritorious at all? Is that...
I'm not familiar with the litigation around that, but I can tell you since January 28th, none of that has happened, and that everyone, I think there's some conflation, and much of it's due to the media on what is a DOGE employee, what is a Treasury employee. Anyone who works in the Treasury building is a Treasury employee. So they may have come there at the suggestion of DOGE, but they are properly trained and compliant just as any other Treasury employee would be.
Well, I think you've touched on an issue of conflation of different jobs. On February 3rd, you wrote in response to my letter that one of your colleagues, Tom Krause, started as a DOGE representative, but then was brought on as an expert/consultant. But then 2 days later, on February 5th, you installed him as the Fiscal Assistant Secretary. which is the top official charged with running the Bureau of Fiscal Services. At any time during his employment at Treasury, was he a member or an employee of another company?
He may have been if he were an SGE, I think he's allowed to have outside employment.
Well, in fact, again, another transcript from a court case, he was he was the chief executive officer of Cloud Software Group, which presents interesting or potential conflicts of interest.
But, Senator, I believe as an SGE that is permitted to be seconded for a limited period of time with proper controls.
Is he still involved with cloud computing?
I believe he's left Treasury.
So let me just switch to another area of data. I'm very much concerned because of the DOGE penetration of the entire government. Again, the IRS has extraordinarily confidential, deeply personal taxpayer information, Social Security numbers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if compromised, this could threaten Americans' financial security as well as even more sinister aspects. DOGE staff members have attempted to access the integrated data retrieval system at the IRS. Secretary, does DOGE staff have they ever had or do they have access to the integrated data retrieval system?
Not to my knowledge, sir. Again, any information they would have had access to would have been via. And I'm new to this, but I'm going to throw a lot of acronyms at you. It would have been through an MOU between IRS and OMB. So we put the proper controls, prophylactics around any activities that they had in the building.
Are you confident that no information has been exported from the Treasury Department by DOGE personnel?
Not to my knowledge, Senator.
Have you investigated it to ensure us that that's absolutely correct?
Well, we have strict protocols around that, so there's no reason to believe that there was. Now, in the previous administration, a contractor went to jail and paid, I can't remember, either a $5,000 or $10,000 fine, is serving a stated 5-year term. We don't know the terms of his plea agreement for exporting, I believe, the files of, I don't know, it was 40, 50, 100 of the highest taxpayers in America, including President Trump.
Well, you know, one of the issues here is these are temporary. Their employees or employer status is kind of up in the air, particularly if they're not full-time employees. They work for other companies, et cetera, and they certainly have the technical talents to copy and exploit and expropriate any information they want.
Well, Senator, that's why we took this very seriously in terms of there was a push for them to come in the building. Our staff at Treasury and IRS was very mindful and diligent of everything you've said. So we were very mindful of having proper balances, protocols in place.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you for clarifying that for us, Mr. Secretary. I think that was very helpful to have that.
And Senator, my staff just told me all of the details there are in the litigation.